Intelligence Community by Dustin J. Carmack. Mission Statement: to arm a future incoming conservative president with the knowledge and tools necessary to fortify the United States intelligence community, to defend against all foreign enemies and ensure the security and prosperity of our sovereign nation, devoid of all political motivations, and to maintain constitutional civil liberties. Overview: the United States intelligence community, IC, is a vast, intricate bureaucracy spread throughout 18 independent and cabinet sub-agencies. According to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, the IC's mission is to collect, analyze, and deliver foreign intelligence and counterintelligence information to America's leaders so they can make sound decisions to protect our country. An incoming conservative president needs to use these intelligence authorities aggressively to anticipate and thwart our adversaries, including Russia, Iran, North Korea, and especially China, while maintaining counterterrorism tools that have demonstrated their effectiveness. This means empowering the right personnel to manage, build, and effectively execute actions dispersed throughout the IC to deliver intelligence in an ever challenging world. It also means removing redundancies, mission creep, and IC infighting that could prevent these collection tools from providing objective, apolitical, and empirically backed intelligence to the IC's premier customer, the President of the United States. Today, as Abraham Lincoln famously said, the occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. We must think anew and act anew. The intelligence community maintains an incredible capacity to achieve its mission, but both the IC and the somewhat antiquated infrastructure that supports it often place too high a priority on yesterday's threats and methodologies instead of trying to identify possible future threats or the methodologies that might be needed to combat them. The IC often spends too much time overcorrecting for past mistakes. The unintended consequences include hesitancy, groupthink, and an overly cautious approach that allows personal incentives to drive preset courses. The IC must be perceived as a depoliticized protector of America's civil rights and security. The American people are understandably frustrated by the fact that those who abuse power are rarely held to account for their actions. This must change, beginning with leadership that is both committed to ensuring that these agencies faithfully execute the laws of the land under the Constitution and resolved to punish and remove any officials who have abused the public trust. The IC must also start to look forward, not backward. A concerted, disciplined, leadership led initiative must be undertaken to refocus and shift IC prioritization, funding, and authorities to new and emerging threats, technologies, and methodologies if the United States is to prevail against its global adversaries. Unfortunately, America's major strategic threat is a nation state peer and possibly ahead of the U.S. in strategic areas. An incoming president must understand that today's intelligence competition could well require analyzing technologies the U.S. does not have or compartmentalizing certain information as was done during the Cold War because of intelligence penetration. A future president's ability to drive the resources needed to defeat another nation state giant should therefore be the focus of near term IC reforms. Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI. The ODNI was established in the aftermath of the attacks on 9/11 and intelligence failures leading up to the 2003 U.S. war in Iraq. The office and its functions stem from authorities established under executive orders promulgated by President George W. Bush in 2004, followed by statutory authorizations in the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004. IRTPA. Proponents of an ODNI hope to establish reforms similar to the Goldwater-Nichols Department of Defense DoD reforms of the 1980s, which identified recurring problems within the DoD's command and control architecture and led to unified combatant commands with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff as a senior ranking member of the armed forces and principal military advisor to the president. The ODNI was envisioned as a small but powerful IC coordinating agency led by a Director of National Intelligence, DNI. As the President's principal intelligence advisor, the DNI would lead and provide oversight of the President's intelligence authorities while wielding a cudgel, budget and appointment authorities, to break institutional silos that has caused past intelligence integration failures. Originally envisioned by the 9/11 Commission as a strengthened, authoritative position, the final congressionally negotiated product signed by President Bush has led to ambiguous and vague authorities that are dependent on who is selected as DNI and Central Intelligence Agency CIA director and their level of support from the White House and National Security Council NSC. 9/11 Commission Executive Director Philip Zelikow warned in a 2004 hearing that creating a new agency lacking any existing institutional base would require authorities at least as strong as those we have proposed, or else it would create a bureaucratic fifth wheel that would make the present situation even worse. The ODNI has become that bureaucratic fifth wheel about which Zelikow. For example, under the Bush administration's initial legislative proposal, the CIA director would have been under the authority, direction, and control of the DNI and no longer the head of an autonomous agency. Additional mechanisms envisioned full budget authority for the DNI, including within DoD's intelligence components, as opposed to coordinating authority. Through arduous sausage making and relatively quick negotiations, lawmakers produced statutorily vague authorities that traded away the DNI's ability to direct budgetary authority across the entire IC, including DoD, and left the CIA a subordinate but independent agency with duties to report to the DNI without explicit directing authority. These statutory developments were what led President Bush's first choice to serve as DNI, Robert Gates, to turn down the position. In discussions with the White House over the post, Gates noted that the legislation weakened the leadership of the community and that instead of a stronger person, you ended up with a weaker person because the DNI had no troops and no additional powers really on the budget, hiring, and firing. Gates noted that success would require the president to make explicit publicly that the DNI is head of the intelligence community, not some budgeter or coordinator, and that the position's only prayer of success is for the president to say plainly how he sees the job. Without his explicit mandate, the endeavor is doomed to fail. One of the two DNIs confirmed by the Senate during the Trump administration, John Ratcliffe, acknowledged that Gates's theoretical concerns became the practical reality that he inherited. Prior DNIs were the head of the IC only on paper and were routinely accustomed to yielding IC actions and decisions to the preferences of the CIA and other agencies. My ability to begin reversing that capitulation was accomplished solely because President Trump made it repeatedly clear to the entire national security apparatus that he expected all intelligence matters to go through the DNI. To help further the legislative intent behind IRTPA, DNI Ratcliffe advised during the transition of incoming Biden, DNI Avril Haines, and that the DNI should be the only cabinet level intelligence official. While his recommendation was adopted and has corrected the previously allowed imbalance by making the DNI the only cabinet official and head of the IC at the table, the ODNI's effectiveness and direction leave much to be desired. A conservative president must decide how to empower an individual to oversee and manage the intelligence community effectively. To be successful, the DNI and ODNI must be able to lead the IC and implement the president's intelligence priorities. This includes being able to exercise both budget and personnel authority and being able to rely on timely, useful feedback from subordinate components of the IC, many of which are located within other cabinet agencies. The